what's up everybody? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Tanel, and yeah, today as you can see I've set up some interesting things from Asus on my desk here. So today what I'm gonna do is a proper Assassin's Creed Origins benchmarking test. So I've been playing the game for quite a few days already right now, and the game is absolutely stunning in my opinion. It looks like a proper next generation game. So what I wanted to do is to see how well do different systems compare at Assassin's Creed Origins. So as you can see, I have some pretty interesting stuff on my table here, and I should get a GTX 1060 also, but I'm not so certain at the moment. But I'm trying to do my best to get one to, you know, implement it into this test video. So today we're gonna test out Assassin's Creed Origins at maximum detail and see how do different systems fare with a GTX 1080 Ti from Asus, the Strix model, and AMD's top of the line video card, AMD 64 or Vega 64. I always want to say the processor AMD 64, but yeah, Vega 64 is also a video card that I have here. And as you can see, for the systems that I'm gonna be using today is SkylakeX, Coffee Lake, and of course the Kaby Lake CPU. So I do have the 7700K for Kaby Lake, and for Coffee Lake I have the 8600K. And what I'm thinking is overclocking them to 5 GHz point and then running the benchmarks. Maybe stock performance also to get a better idea how you know, megahertz really affects Origins. And for SkylakeX I'm gonna be using my own 7900X. So yeah, pretty interesting stuff. I'm gonna be overclocking 7900X to 4.3 to 4.5 GHz. Somewhere in between those lines. And for the motherboards, I'm gonna be using the Rampage 6 Apex for the X299 system. For the Z270, I'm gonna be using the Z270E from Asus, and for the Coffee Lake, I'm gonna be using Z370F, which is a pretty stunning looking motherboard. And yeah, at the moment I have the Z270 Kaby Lake installed. I'm gonna be using G-Skill's RGB memory to make it more prettier. There's a Radeon RX 560, if I'm not mistaken at the moment there. I'm gonna be taking that out. I'm not gonna be using that in this because who uses an RX 560 these days? Anyway, yeah, that's gonna be it for my intro here. So I'm gonna be installing a lot of systems, a lot of Windowses, and yeah, a lot of drivers. But hopefully it's all gonna be for a good cause, and you guys gonna know how well does the game perform on Kaby Lake, on Coffee Lake, and SkylakeX. Yeah, let's get testing and see how Vega 64 fares with the 1080 Ti, and perhaps I get a GTX 1060 also in this test. So yeah, let's begin. Begin with the benchmarking with my Z270 system, which is finally up and running on my desk here, and Assassin's Creed Origins is running on the background. And as you can see, I'm using the absolutely stunning case from Thermaltake at the moment, the View 28 RGB, and I'm using the G-Skill Trident Z RGB memory, which is I guess the most beautiful RGB memory in the world. So that's gonna be my setup here, and I'm kicking things off with the GTX 1060 that I received. So I did find a Inno 3D GTX 1060, a 6GB version one, and yeah, we're gonna kick things off with this card here, and the 7700K, which is running at 4.2 GHz with turbo going up to 4.5, and it is a 4-core 8-thread CPU. So pretty interesting to see how it fares, and I'm gonna try and overclock it to 5 GHz also, so we can compare the results and see if overclocking the CPU that much or that little helps in Origins. And lastly, of course, I'm gonna do the benchmarking at 1080p and at 4K. So 1080p, I'm gonna use my big ass 75-inch screen behind me, and for 4K, I'm gonna use AOC's U2868PQ U monitor, which is a pretty nice, decent 4K monitor for gaming also. So that's the hardware that I'm gonna use. And as I am mostly using Asus's own hardware in today's benchmarking video, there is a couple of things that I want to say actually. Namely, first, Asus is running a promotion until the end of the year that you can get Assassin's Creed Origins for free if you purchase select video cards or monitors from Asus. I'm gonna leave the link down below in the description so you can check that out. And also, second thing that I noticed today, Asus launched their 1080 Ti Strix Assassin's Creed Origins model, which is absolutely insane looking. I really love the back plate of it, and of course the front plate is also pretty nice. It's just a really nice looking 1080 Ti. So if you're into Assassin's Creed, especially or mainly Origins, and you love 1080 Ti's and Asus, I guess that's a pretty good way to go when purchasing a 1080 Ti. And of course you're gonna get Assassin's Creed Origins free with the video card also, which is a pretty nice deal if you ask me. So anyway, let's start benchmarking, and I'm gonna be back real soon with you with the results. So, finished my benchmarking with the Kaby Lake system here, and I have the results. So after this I'm moving on to Coffee Lake, but for Kaby Lake 7700K it was pretty interesting, I guess. One fact that 5 GHz overclock didn't get even 1 frame per second in Assassin's Creed Origins, so overclocking your CPU totally pointless. But anyway, the results. So the GTX 1060 first, I guess. GTX 1060 at 1080p received an average FPS of 45, and when I cranked up the resolution to 4K, it received 22 frames per second there. So 45-ish and 22 below 30 frames per second in 4K is, you know, not the best. It's not really playable, right? But it was all ran at maximum detail, so feel free to, you know, adjust the quality of detail in the game a little bit lower, so maybe you can actually play at 4K. Now, next up was AMD's Vega 64, and at 1080p maximum detail it received an average FPS of 58. And cranking up the resolution to 4K, it received an average FPS of 34, so near 60 frames per second at 1080p. It was really nice and smooth to play the game at maximum detail. So if you're worried if Vega 64 can handle you know, Origins at maximum detail with your 7700K, then yeah, 60 FPS, no problem. Although not those 100 plus FPSs. But even 1080 Ti couldn't reach that. Anyway, at 4K 30, what was it, 34? I mean, it's playable, but yeah, definitely tone a few options from the settings down. And maybe if you tone down the settings a little bit more, even at 1080p, you might get near those 100 frames per second. So those people with high refresh rate monitors could benefit a lot, maybe. Anyway, lastly, GTX 1080 Ti. Well, at 1080p max detail, it received an average FPS of 74. So pretty decently over 60 frames per second, so constantly, you will be getting around 60 plus FPS with a 1080 Ti at maximum detail. Now, cranking up the resolution to 4K, it received an average FPS of 43. So yeah, 43 at 4K was totally enjoyable, totally playable, and I did make a few gameplay videos from it also, so if you wanna check that out, go check it out. So I guess it's time to move on to Coffee Lake system. Need to build that all up, and yeah, I'm gonna use the Asus Z370E motherboard this time, and of course pretty much all that you see already there. So just the motherboard, and of course, yeah, I need a new CPU, so Intel provided me a Core i5 8600K. So Core i5, yeah, should be a pretty decent CPU with its 6 cores and 6 threads, so should be a little bit quicker than the 7700K even, but yeah, needs to be seen. Anyway, let's check out how Coffee Lake fares. Finally concluded my benchmarking with the Coffee Lake system. Up next is the X299 SkylakeX, but yeah, Coffee Lake. It was my first benchmark actually with Coffee Lake system, so it was pretty interesting to see it perform better than the 7700K, which is a Core i7. So the Core i5 8600K was better, and oh boy, how much better it was. Well, in Assassin's Creed Origins at least. So I have the results over here, and just to go over the 7700K results. So the 7700K with the GTX 1060 got 45 FPS as average at 1080p. Now on 8600K default frequency, it got 61 frames per second. So almost 20 frames per second better just with the Coffee Lake CPU. Which is, in terms of gigahertz or megahertz, is slower, but it does have 2 extra cores attached to it. 2 less threads, but 2 extra proper cores. And I guess Origins really likes cores, I guess. That's interesting to see when testing SkylakeX. So how much FPS will I get with SkylakeX? That's the next question. But anyway, I did run 4K also, and again, GTX 1060 with the 7700K got 22 frames per second at 4K, and yeah, with 8600K it received 25 frames per second. So yeah, the thing is, for 1080p, the CPU does influence the result of the benchmark horror games quite largely, I would say. Really interesting here is that the frame rate at 4K is only 3 FPS better. So going to 4K, the FPS doesn't fluctuate, that much. So you won't really gain when playing with 7700K or 8600K. They're pretty similar, but 1080p scores were definitely fluctuating a lot more. So next up was the AMD's Vega 64, and yeah, coming again back to 7700K, it received 58 frames per second at 1080p, and on the 8600K it received 58 frames per second. So that's the same result. Yeah, that was the first test, first card that I tested also. So 58, it's the same frame rate for 7700K and the 8600K. But now going to 4K, there was a slight difference. So on 7700K we got 34 frames per second, and with the 8600K we received 36. So 2 frames per second better. I don't know, maybe NVIDIA cards scale better with CPUs, or I don't know. Anyway, the results for AMD Vega were quite, you know, modest. Nothing really changed when, you know, changing out the Kaby Lake system to Coffee Lake. So if you want to stick with Vegas 64 or AMD cards, just stick with Kaby Lake and don't upgrade yet. I would say, maybe. I don't know. Well, at least if you're playing Assassin's Creed Origins. And now, finally, 1080 Ti. And 1080 Ti was pretty interesting. So 1080 Ti got us, with the 7700K, we received 74 frames per second at 1080p. Now with the 8600K Core i5, we got 91 frames per second. So that's again like a 20 frames per second better result just by upgrading from Kaby Lake to Coffee Lake. So really nice performance boost there. So yeah, definitely if I go to a shop at the moment, I'd get the Kaby Lake system. Coffee Lake system! Kaby Lake is dead, pretty much. So yeah, definitely Coffee Lake is showing really nice performance. Also 8600K is like 60 euros or something cheaper than the 7700K. So that's also a nice thing. Now going to 4K. So at 4K we... on the 7700K, we received 43 frames per second, and on the 8600K, 55 frames per second. So a nice boost at 4K even. So yeah, those are the results for the Coffee Lake system and these video cards here. And yeah, it was interesting to see Coffee Lake, you know, really giving a nice boost in frames. For NVIDIA video cards, but not so for AMD. Weird. Anyway, let's move on to the SkylakeX X299 and see how much performance boost do we get if we add a few extra cores. So the 7900X with its 10 cores and 20 threads should be a pretty nice CPU for Assassin's Creed Origins. And yeah, I almost forgot. You were maybe wondering, where are the 5 GHz tests? Yeah, I ran them. Again, no difference in frame rate. It's pretty much same. It fluctuates maybe like 1 to 2 frames per second here and there, but that might be just, you know, by restarting the benchmark you will get like 1 to 2 FPS difference there. So yeah, that was pretty strange. Although with AMD Vega I did notice like almost 10 frames per second boost at 5 GHz. So I don't know, overclocking a CPU for Assassin's Creed Origins seems pretty pointless. Anyway, let's move on to X299. So finally, as you can see, the SkylakeX system is up and running on my desk here, and it's like 3 AM at the moment. So yeah, and I still haven't done the benchmarks for the SkylakeX system, so I'm not really going to sleep anytime soon. But anyway, installed this bad boy in there at the moment. So for the SkylakeX, the beautiful, the monster, the Rampage 6 Apex. Which is not the Extreme. I do also have the Extreme here, but I'm installing the Extreme to my really extreme PC that you guys are gonna see in a couple of weeks, I guess, when my first chassis is built and done and everything is installed and all my ideas are, you know, built on the chassis and the motherboard, and you're gonna see it. It's gonna be a little bit special one. But anyway, yeah, looking at the beast at the moment, it looks absolutely stunning with the NZXT all-in-one water cooling solution, coupled with the G-Skill RGB memory, the Trident C RGBs. I mean, best looking memory in the world, if you ask me, when considering RGB. And yeah, best looking all-in-one water cooling solution in the world, if you ask me. So anyway, it's time to start testing the SkylakeX system and see how do the video cards compared to the earlier system. So how does SkylakeX compare to 7700K and the 8600K, and do those extra cores really matter? So should be pretty interesting stuff here, and we'll see a pretty nice result in the end, so you kind of get the idea if you should spend a lot of money and get a SkylakeX, or you know, get a maybe a little bit cheaper CPU like the Kaby Lake or the Coffee Lake. So anyway, yeah, let's move on to the testing and let's see and let's find out who's the top con in today's benchmarking video. So another few hours of benchmarking done, and that's pretty much it. I have all the results now, and Jesus, it pretty much took my whole day to just benchmark these cards and these CPUs. But I thought it would be a pretty interesting thing to do, because in my opinion, Assassin's Creed Origins is Game of the Year this year. And also it looks stunningly good, so a pretty nice gaming benchmark, because it also has a gaming benchmark built into it, so a pretty nice little touch there from Ubisoft. But anyway, how did SkylakeX fare to Coffee Lake and Kaby Lake? So that's the main question, right? So I have the results here, and well, they're nothing interesting if we compare them to Coffee Lake. So let's take the Coffee Lake results for GTX 1060 6GB version, and at 1080p. What did we get? We got 61 frames per second as average FPS. Now with the 7900X, 57 frames per second. So that's a little bit less than Coffee Lake, which is odd, but I guess that's more to do with the higher frequency that the Coffee Lake CPU had. Now coming to the 4K benchmark, the GTX 1060 with the 8600K received 25 frames per second, and on the 7900X 25 frames per second. So pretty much the same. It is exactly the same results. So absolutely no difference at all if you're playing at 4K. But anyway, moving on to the Vega 64. Now Vega 64 on the 8600K got us 58 frames per second at 1080p. Now on the 7900X, add 1, you get 59. That's how much it got. So 7900X produced 1 frame per second more than the 8600K. But I guess if we run the test a couple of more times on either system, you know, those frames per second, the average result will vary from, I don't know, 5 frames or so, I would guess. But anyway, yeah, pretty much the same result again here. Now, there was a slight difference here with the GTX 1080 Ti, which I'm coming to in a second. But yeah, 4K results for the AMD's Vega 64 on the 8600K, 36 frames per second, and yeah, you know the result already pretty much. 36 frames per second also on the 7900X. So yeah, pretty interesting to see that CPU doesn't, you know, matter pretty much at all if you have 6 or more cores, I would say, because the 8600K was faster than the 7700K, which is only 4 cores and 8 threads. So Core i5 8600K, I'm starting to really like the CPU. Can't wait to get my hands on a 8700K. But anyway, yeah, those are the results for the Vega 64. And now moving on to the GTX 1080 Ti. Now the 1080 Ti on the 8600K at 1080p got us a result of 91 frames per second. Now on the 7900X add 3 points to it. So 94 frames per second as average FPS, which is yeah, pretty much the same. So again, no real difference here. And yeah, at 4K resolution, the 8600K produced us 55 frames per second, and with the 7900X, 52. So we lost frames per second somehow. I don't know how. But again, I guess it's something to do with the frequencies. So the higher the clocks, the better the performance. But anyway, yeah, that's pretty much gonna conclude the benchmarking results. And now I did run also 5 GHz tests again with the 7900X, and again, no real difference in terms of results. Although the GTX 1080 Ti from that 94 frames per second went up to 100 frames per second. So 6 frames per second gain for, you know, for upping the voltage quite a bit. I think I had it at 1.35 or something like that. So a pretty high voltage on my 7900X, but it's not deleted, so it's pretty hot, so that might be an issue also. But yeah, that's something for another video, I would say, maybe. But anyway, that's pretty much it for the results. So, what can we conclude from this test here that I did for a whole freaking day, and I'm gonna edit it the whole next day, so you can watch it the day after that day. So, what I can conclude here, if you're going out there and you're thinking on buying a CPU for gaming, Coffee Lake is definitely a really nice CPU to get for gaming, and highly recommending the Core i5 8600K. Really stellar performance from it, and I was yeah, really surprised by it. And yeah, compared to the 7700K costs about 40 to 60 euros more than the 8600K. So pretty much nobody's really gonna buy the last generation CPU, right? I mean, yeah, they will sell them for some time, but at the moment, if you're going out for a new CPU, yeah, definitely look for the Coffee Lake CPUs and motherboards. Now, the question is, should you upgrade from Kaby Lake to Coffee Lake? And yeah, I would say no, just wait for the next generation of CPUs, I would say. I guess there's no real benefit of upgrading, but if you're looking for a new PC, definitely Coffee Lake. Anyway, what about SkylakeX then? As I stated before, if you're a YouTuber, live streamer, or somebody like that who edits videos or photos or something like that, I don't know if photos so, but yeah, definitely video editing, rendering, and live streaming and making videos, you know, definitely get the SkylakeX. So that's the person who should buy it. And of course, also keep in mind, it does have the same performance as the top-end Coffee Lake CPUs, so you'll get the benefit of both worlds, as the Coffee Lake is really good for gaming, but it's not that great for rendering videos. It's great for rendering videos, don't get me wrong, but SkylakeX does it like half the time or something like that. So yeah, that's the big thing here. And also for live streaming, it really helps if you have a lot of cores. So yeah, that's gonna be it for my benchmarking video here. Hope you guys liked it. If I left something out here, then definitely leave a comment down below. I'm gonna try and do something something more interesting, I guess. Maybe, you know, to test some more games or benchmarks, and yeah, I'm gonna see what I'm gonna do. I do have some video reviews coming from Coffee Lake motherboards and CPUs, so keep an eye out on my channel here. And yeah, I have some other cool stuff coming also, so yeah, definitely subscribe if you haven't subscribed before, and leave a thumbs up if you liked the video. And I'm gonna head to sleep, like right freaking now. See you later. What I meant was, that's good night.